The doctor saw my ultrasound and begged me to get a divorce. I never expected the truth. The doctor's hands were shaking. I noticed it immediately. Not the kind of tiny tremble someone might have after a long shift. No, her fingers were visibly trembling as she stared down at the folder in her hands. But she wasn't looking at the ultrasound screen. The screen where my baby's tiny heartbeat flickered in soft black and white. Instead, she kept staring at the paperwork, specifically at one line printed neatly at the top of the page. My husband's name, Grant Mercer. Then suddenly, without saying a word, she reached forward and switched off the ultrasound monitor. Just like that. Click. The heartbeat disappeared from the screen. The room went silent. For a moment I couldn't breathe. My mind instantly jumped to the worst possible conclusion. Something was wrong with my baby. My chest tightened. Is the baby okay? I asked. The doctor didn't answer right away. Instead, she slowly turned toward me. Her face looked pale, almost as if she'd just seen something deeply disturbing. Mrs. Mercer, she said quietly, I need to speak with you privately, right now. My stomach dropped. Every terrible possibility rushed into my head at once. Miscarriage. Heart defect. Genetic disorder. I sat up on the exam table, my heart hammering against my ribs. What's wrong? I whispered. She walked toward the door and gently closed it. Then she locked it. That sound echoed in the small room. Click. Something about that tiny sound made the hairs on my arms stand up. Doctors didn't lock doors for normal conversations. Please, she said softly, come with me to my office. My legs felt weak as I followed her down the hallway. I was 4 months pregnant. 4 months into what I believed was the happiest chapter of my life. And within the next 5 minutes, everything I thought I knew about my marriage was about to collapse. My name is Daphne Wilson. I'm 32 years old and I work as a marketing director at a boutique advertising firm in Connecticut. Most people who meet me would describe my life as stable, maybe even enviable. I had a successful career, a beautiful historic home, and a husband who, until recently, seemed completely devoted to me. But there was something about my life that made me a target. I come from what people politely call old money. 5 years ago, my grandmother, Elena Wilson, passed away. She left me her estate, a trust worth approximately $2.3 million, and the Wilson family home, a beautiful century-old estate that had been passed down through 5 generations of women. To me, it wasn't about wealth. It was security, history, family. But to someone else, it looked like opportunity. I met my husband, Grant Mercer, 4 years ago. It happened at my family's annual charity gala. The Wilson Foundation had hosted the event for decades. That night I had been standing at the bar, trying desperately to escape a painfully awkward conversation with a man who had asked about my financial portfolio within 3 minutes of meeting me. Subtle right. Then Grant appeared beside me. Tall, dark hair, easy smile. What are you drinking? He asked casually. I told him. He ordered the same thing. Then he leaned closer and whispered, Is it just me, or is this the worst jazz band in human history? I laughed. For the first time that night. We spent the next hour talking about everything except money. Books, travel, music. He said he was a financial advisor who had been invited by a colleague and had no idea who the Wilson family even was. At the time, I found that refreshing. Looking back now, that should have been my first red flag. A financial advisor who didn't research the host family of a major charity event. That's like a chef showing up to a cooking competition and saying, Wait, we're cooking today. But I didn't question it. I wanted to believe him. We dated for a year. Grant was attentive, charming. He remembered every tiny detail about me. My favorite flowers. My favorite wines. The way I liked my coffee. He insisted on paying for dinner, even though I made more money than he did. He seemed sincere, genuine, different from the men who saw dollar signs when they looked at me. Everyone was impressed by him. Everyone except my mother. After their first meeting, she pulled me aside. "That man's smile doesn't reach his eyes," she said quietly. "What does that even mean?" I laughed. "It means something about him feels wrong." I rolled my eyes. "You're just being paranoid." We argued about Grant constantly. Eventually, we stopped talking about him altogether. Then we stopped talking entirely. 2 years passed with barely any contact between me and my mother. All because I believed my husband over the woman who raised me. Spoiler alert. Mom was right. Grant and I married after 1 year together. The wedding took place in my grandmother's garden. White roses, soft music, hundreds of candles glowing at sunset. Grant cried during his vows. Actual tears streamed down his face as he promised to love and protect me forever. At the time, I thought those tears were proof of his sincerity. Now I realize something else. They weren't tears of joy. They were tears of relief. His long game had finally worked. After 2 years of trying to have a baby, we went to a fertility specialist. The diagnosis hit us like a truck. Grant had severe male factor infertility. His sperm count was almost non-existent. Natural conception was extremely unlikely. Grant seemed devastated. He cried in the parking lot for 20 minutes. He apologized over and over. I held him and told him it wasn't his fault. That we would figure it out together. What I didn't know then was this. Grant wasn't crying because he was heartbroken. He was crying because his plan had suddenly become much more complicated. We decided to pursue IVF. Grant insisted on researching the clinic himself. He said he wanted the very best for us. At the time I thought that was sweet. Now I understand something very different. He wasn't researching success rates. He was researching opportunity. The first IVF cycle failed. I was devastated. I spent 3 days in bed crying. Grant held me and whispered comforting words. 7 months ago we tried again. This time it worked. 2 pink lines appeared on the pregnancy test. I cried tears of joy. Grant hugged me tightly and began talking about baby names. Nursery colors. Our future. Everything seemed perfect. But then, a few weeks later, something in my marriage started to change. Grant began keeping his phone face down. Everywhere. On the kitchen counter. On the bedside table. Even when charging. He changed his password. He started stepping outside to take calls. Late night calls. 11 at night. Sometimes midnight. He claimed it was work. But the stock market doesn't operate on Saturday nights. And Grant didn't have international clients. Something wasn't right. Then the late nights at the office started. 3 times a week. Sometimes 4. He wouldn't come home until midnight. I found receipts. A restaurant downtown. Dinner for 2. $280. Then a hotel receipt. 40 minutes from our house. Why would my husband need a hotel room that close to home? When I asked, Grant had answers ready. Smooth answers. Client meetings. Networking. Conferences. And when I pushed further, his tone changed. "Daphne, you're being paranoid. It's the pregnancy hormones. My mother warned me pregnant women can get irrational." Somehow, he made me feel like I was the one who was wrong. The financial pressure started soon after. Grant began suggesting changes to my trust. We should add my name, he said casually one evening. Just in case something happens during delivery. I refused. Then he suggested selling my grandmother's house. It's too big for us anyway, he said. We could invest the money properly. I said no again. That's when the warmth disappeared. He grew distant, cold. Sometimes he wouldn't speak to me for days. Until he got hungry. His silent treatments had an interesting expiration date. They ended exactly when dinner was ready. One night I woke up at 2 a.m. Grant wasn't in bed. I found him in the kitchen whispering on the phone. It's almost time, he said quietly. By spring everything will be settled. Then he saw me and hung up. Work emergency, he said quickly. But something about his voice made my stomach twist. I just didn't know how right that feeling was. A week later I went to my regular OB appointment. Grant couldn't attend. He had a client meeting. So I went alone. My usual doctor was on vacation. Instead I was assigned to a colleague, Dr. Claire Brennan's. And within 10 minutes of opening my file, she discovered something that made her hands start shaking, and led to the moment that changed my life forever. When she looked at me and whispered, "You need to leave your husband today." Dr. Brennan closed the office door behind us. Then she locked it. Her hands were still shaking. "I know what your husband did," she said quietly. "And I have proof." My heart slammed against my ribs. "What are you talking about?" She pulled a thick folder from her desk. "My younger sister works at your fertility clinic," she said. 3 weeks ago she came to me crying. She told me everything. Everything. That word hung in the air like a storm cloud. Dr. Brennan opened the folder. Inside were printed emails, medical records, payment logs. "My sister's name is Molly," she continued. "She's a nurse at the clinic where you had your IVF treatment." My throat tightened. 7 months ago, she said carefully, your husband approached her. He told Molly that you were using donor sperm because of a genetic issue in his family. He said you didn't know. He claimed he wanted to protect you from unnecessary worry. And then he offered her $30,000. My ears started ringing. "What?" I whispered. Dr. Brennan swallowed. He paid her to switch the sperm samples. My entire body went cold. "The embryo that was implanted," she continued slowly, "was not created with your husband's sperm." For a moment I couldn't speak. I couldn't think. The room seemed to tilt sideways. "My baby," I whispered. Dr. Brennan shook her head gently. "Your baby is healthy," she said quickly. "This isn't about the child." Then she took a deep breath. This was a trap. She laid out the rest of the documents. And piece by piece, the most horrifying scheme I had ever imagined unfolded in front of me. Grant had planned everything, step by step. He bribed the clinic staff. He replaced his own sperm with donor sperm. Then he waited for a successful pregnancy. After the baby was born, he planned to suggest a DNA test. When the results proved he wasn't the biological father, he would accuse me of cheating. And thanks to our prenup, I would owe him $500,000, plus damages, plus my reputation. My husband had spent $50,000 creating a lie that would destroy my life. But he made one mistake. Someone involved in his scheme grew a conscience. And that single moment of guilt saved me. At first I felt numb. Then slowly, anger began replacing the shock. Grant thought I was weak. He thought I would crumble when his trap snapped shut. He had no idea what he had just started. I looked at Dr. Brennan. "He doesn't know that I know," I said. She nodded. "Knows." "Good," I said quietly. Then I took the folder. Because if Grant Mercer wanted to play games, he had just invited the wrong opponent. Over the next 6 weeks, I built a case against my own husband. A private investigator uncovered his gambling debts. $180,000. He owed money to people who didn't accept late payments. She discovered he had also been embezzling from his clients. $53,000 missing. Then came the affair. 8 months with his assistant. Hotel receipts. Photos. Text messages. The evidence was overwhelming. But I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I planned something better. A party. 6 weeks later, I hosted a celebration at my grandmother's estate. A baby celebration. 50 guests attended. Family, friends, colleagues, Grant's parents, everyone. Grant walked around smiling proudly, playing the role of the perfect husband, the devoted father. Then around 3 o'clock, he did exactly what I expected. He suggested a DNA test. Right there at the party. For the nursery, he said with a charming laugh. Proof that daddy and baby are connected forever. The crowd loved the idea. I smiled sweetly. Actually, I said, I have something even better. I walked to the microphone and opened the folder. Within 15 minutes, Grant Mercer's entire life collapsed. The bribery, the affair, the gambling debts, the embezzlement, every secret exposed. Right there in front of 50 witnesses. Then the police stepped forward and placed him under arrest. Grant Mercer left the party in handcuffs. He was denied bail. Too much debt. Too much risk he would run. His company confirmed the missing money. More charges followed. Fraud. Conspiracy. Embezzlement. The divorce was finalized quickly. The prenup clause he had planned to use against me worked the other way instead. He had been the one cheating. He had been the one lying. Grant Mercer eventually received a prison sentence. Several years behind bars. His career ended. His reputation destroyed. His plan had collapsed completely. 4 months later, my baby was born. Healthy. Perfect. Some people asked if I would contact the donor. But the truth is, family isn't defined by DNA. It's defined by who shows up, who stays, who chooses you every day. My child has me, my mother, and the Wilson family legacy. That is more than enough. Sometimes people ask me if I believe in karma. I do, because I watched it happen in real time. Grant Mercer thought he had married an easy target. But he didn't marry a victim. He married a Wilson. And Wilson women don't break. We bend. We adapt. And when someone tries to burn us down, we rise from the ashes, stronger than before.